Gotcha Patch.
Ba 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 ba. Night gathers, and now our podcast begins. It shall not end until we're done talking. We are
the princes that were promised.
All right. Hello. Welcome to the Princes That Were Promised, the Wardens of Long Island. It's me. It's Shawnee Wan. With me, as always, my broadcast partner, my colleague, John. And with a couple days to think about it, John, what are your feelings on the Queen's Justice? Are you feeling better about it? Worse?
Well, I think I gave it a 9, I believe.
You did give it a 9, and that it surprised me.
I'm going to stay with the 9. I think it still holds up. I think that I love episodes where the writers get creative a little bit in their writing. I'm all about like ironic lines and foreshadowing, and I love that last part with Jaime. Things like that, I get a big kick out of.
Last week we had that great battle to top everything off, and this week it wasn't about the battle. There wasn't much of an action scene at all. It still had the same effect, if not more so, if not more powerful, because it involved characters we've been with since the beginning of this series. A reveal like that, it raises a lot of questions. You have to question how well you even know this character that you think you know so well. And maybe that's a good place to start today with a 7-pointed star, actually, is with Jaime. I was going to say before the end, but that's probably the best place to start. Because in that last scene at Highgarden, which is the first time that we saw Highgarden, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's the first time.
Of course, we don't see Highgarden in A Song of Ice and Fire either, nor have we seen Casterly Rock, mind you. And here we go in the final scene of this episode, we see both keeps, both castles for the first time, and we don't get much of a view. They're cut in between each other, and we get flashes of the castle and what it looks like. And it seems like that's it, because Highgarden will not have a part to play going forward, and Casterly Rock, it seems as though the Lannisters have given up on Casterly Rock. So these are two of the more famous castles of the realm that have been talked about so much throughout the series, and it seems like that's it. We just get a quick glimpse and it's done. Or do you think we'll return to either one of these castles?
If they return to one of them, it's going to be Casterly Rock. Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Do you think we're going to see the Unsullied army ever again?
I would think they do have a part to play. I don't know how much more of a part they'll have to play this season. I'm sure we'll see them again.
It tells me we haven't seen the last of them.
Right. What are they going to show them doing? I mean, there's no food there for them.
They have to get away from that castle. There's no food. They have to go someplace. Westeros, there's going to be a whole bunch of outlaws picking them up left and right because they're going to see like a foreign army.
Is there any group that can help them? Not in the West, right?
No. There's no group. I'm just thinking, though, it would be funny if they show, like, dragons over, like, Westeros. They're flying, and next thing you know, you pan down, and the whole thing, you just see this, like, fleet people just, like, marching.
I mean, that's huge, because it's not just that Dany lost now the alliances that she made from Westeros, but she lost her Unsullied. And those guys have been with her since the 3rd season.
And it's a huge army.
There's a big part of her power was the Unsullied. Who did she have? Who did she have without the Martells, without the Tyrells, without the Unsullied?
She has now the Dothraki and the dragons.
That's it. She doesn't have much of anything. It's interesting because now it goes back to season 1, which was the original plan for them, was just to come across the sea with the Dothraki.
It's funny how they did this, going back to Jaime.
Right.
We're seeing, like, Tyrion's dialogue over, the events going on. And they're storing the castle fairly easy. And it just never once did it hit me at that point that this was a trap.
Right.
It was only when Grey Worm came up there and looked and you just realized, wait a minute, where is the Lannister army?
When we first saw them, I thought they were storming Casterly Rock. I thought they had set a trap for them. I mean, they did set a trap for them. But
once Jaime went up to Leah Tyrell, I said, wow, that reminded me of Robb Stark's
the Whispering Wood move.
War plan.
Yeah.
And behold, Jaime says right there, well, you learn from your losses.
It's an interesting line to say then and there. This is the first topic for today, is Jaime in the School of Hard Knocks, Jaime's education. And looking at his character from season 1 when Robb split his armies, it wasn't just Jaime that he fooled. It was also Tywin. The problem was Jaime was caught unawares of the attack coming from Robb. And if I remember correctly, I'm not sure if it's the same thing in the television show, but Jaime's camp was split into basically three equal parts surrounding Riverrun on 3 different banks so that no third could get to the other third to help them out. And that was really the only way that you could encamp and put Riverrun under siege, was to split your army in that way. So when Robb got to the Lannister army, it was just a third of the forces and nobody could come and help. And it was a really, really tough defeat for Jaime. It's not just the defeat, but then it's that he's held captive for so long. And then he's got to go on this long, tumultuous journey with Brienne. And it really does change his character. I mean, we see that it changes his character. But it's nice to have that callback and nice to see that Jaime grows as a war commander and learns from that lesson. And now he uses it against the enemy. So he's sitting and he's thinking, all right, Tyrion is probably going to take Casterly Rock. That's the power of the West. He can't take King's Landing. So instead of going to Casterly Rock and being ready for him and doing battle, he just abandons the castle altogether. It's a brilliant move. You want the castle? Go ahead, take the castle. That splits Daenerys' forces. I don't know if it splits it in half. Maybe it splits it in more than half. But it splits her forces, and the stronger military part of her campaign, of her people, are now abandoned and on their own in the West with no food, like we said before. And now they got to figure out not just how to get back to Daenerys. That's not even the main concern. Their main concern is surviving, finding food. Because you know that they burned the surrounding area. There's no way that they're going to be able to strike out a few kilometers in any direction and find some food. They're in trouble. And have the Greyjoys come by and burn their fleet. And I do have to... We said during the immediate review that Euron Greyjoy has a bit of the Varys Littlefinger travel speed this season. And he really does.
Get some motorboats in there or something.
Listen, to sail from King's Landing to Casterly Rock, that's a long, long voyage. I could buy that he made it, maybe if that episode takes place over like the course of like a month, maybe longer. But if next week Euron's back at King's Landing somehow, like you got to go all the way down past Sunspear. You got to come around Sunspear and then come back up to King's Landing. That's the only way. It
is funny, and I don't think any of us realized it, but it was hinted that this was going to happen earlier in the episode. Cersei was like, with my brother Jaime leading the ground attack and Euron Greyjoy, the greatest seaman, going to be
the greatest captain in Westeros.
You just thought that was just a generalized statement, but it was really kind of like foreshadowing that their combined teamwork, as you can call it, Euron attacking at Casterly Rock at sea, eliminating the boats of the Unsullied, trapping them, and then the flash to Jaime on the ground at Highgarden.
I know you didn't think so much, but a lot of people believed at the end of season 6 that Cersei was done for. You looked at that navy, Daenerys was leading over to Westeros, and her dragons, the Unsullied, the Dothraki.
Everyone was like, oh, there's no way. Who's going to defeat Dany? She has all this. Well, in a span of 3 weeks.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Dany is in... She has the dragons, so I'm not going to say she's in worse shape than Stannis, but...
But it's like you don't want to use... It's kind of like you don't want to use a dragon. She's going to have to use the dragons probably a lot earlier and sooner than she probably wanted to.
Right.
Because now it's a desperate move now.
Mm-hmm.
You want to keep those dragons at the last possible time to use them.
Right.
And now with all these losses, she's going to have to use them right now.
It's like playing a game of chess. You don't want to bring your queen out right away. You want to establish the board. You want to use your other pieces to chip away at the other guy's army. You want to get the strategic advantage and really get your pieces to where you want them to be and then bring out the queen. The queen's the last... Well, I mean, the rooks are the last piece you should bring out, but the queen's the last part of your offensive, whatever it is, that you should reveal or start to establish because it's such a strong piece. You don't want to waste it. If you lose your queen in chess, more than likely you're not going to win the game.
Right, and I just hope that Dany knows how to use her queen, so to speak, better than I do, because every time I used to play chess, I would use the queen inside of 2 moves, that queen was a goner.
Right, yeah.
Somehow, some way.
What's the equivalent of chess in Sivas? Sivas is the equivalent of chess over in Westeros. And you know what? I think they have a piece called the Dragon that functions the same way as the Queen. Now that I think of it, remembering all of Tyrion's games of Sivas in A Dance with Dragons, he always talks about establishing his dragon. You don't want to bring your dragon out till the end. It functions the same as the Queen. The dragons are like nuclear weapons. They're unstoppable for the most part. But if someone figures out a way to stop them, well, that's it for the Targaryens. That's it for Daenerys and her campaign to take over Westeros. More than likely, nobody can stop the dragons. But it's even less likely if you have the Unsullied and the Dothraki and you have all these other pieces that can help you out with a battle or with your campaign. But if all you're relying on is dragons, yeah, Aegon was able to do it, but it's different. At that point in time, it was 7 kingdoms, always at war with each other. It's not a united Westeros now, but you have the power of the Greyjoys and the Lannisters at this stage after the War of the Five Kings with all of these houses that have been extinguished. It's enough to stop Daenerys. I think even with dragons, I think it's enough to stop Daenerys. Maybe she might win. She might win just because she's got the dragons. But she might not. But the only way she's winning is if she literally burns down King's Landing. Which she doesn't want to do. So all of a sudden now, the North looks a lot more important to her cause than it did when Jon Snow first arrived on Dragonstone. But going back to Jaime. Jaime learns from his mistakes militarily. But I think he learns another very important lesson here. He fought Cersei to give Olenna Tyrell
A clean death.
A death with pride, worthy of her station, worthy of her age. She drinks the poison straight away, and then she reveals to Jaime that she poisoned Joffrey. And what do you think the look on Jaime's face was saying? He doesn't seem all that sad that Tommen's gone. He seemed sad when Myrcella died. What do you think Jaime's feelings are on Joffrey? He was a sicko, Joffrey. He was a brat. He had the face only a mother could love. So what are Jaime's feelings on Joffrey?
I'm not so much think that facial feelings about Joffrey was more of a shock that it was her. And maybe to the point of
thinking back to Tyrion.
He knew that Tyrion didn't do it, but now this just confirms that belief was false.
Well, it validated his doubt.
I think it just pissed him off that she was telling him this truth and being like, as you just said, I talked my sister out of these horrible deaths for you, and now you're telling this. I should have brought you back to King's Landing and skinned you alive and beheaded you, and it's my mistake.
Well, in one
compassion.
That's the thing. In one line, he's saying, "Oh my God, Cersei was wrong about Tyrion, but Cersei was right about Olenna Tyrell." Does this push him closer to or further away from Cersei?
A lot of people think it's pushing him further away.
Yeah,
I just haven't seen that yet.
I would think closer to.
I would think yes, but what I think is be interesting is next week's episode. We saw in the trailer the gold that they had carried. I got a feeling that gold's not coming back. I think Cersei is going to really bitch out Jaime for failing to get that gold, because now Cersei is going to be in deep with Iron Bank. So I think then is where we can possibly see more of going further away from Cersei.
There's going to have to be a number of things that drives him away, and maybe that process has begun. Maybe it started with the Winds of Winter in season 6. But he does seem like he's closer to her now than he was at all last season. Actually, you know what? Now that I think on it, maybe not. The only wedge, honestly, that I've noticed between Jaime and Cersei, Game of Thrones, is Cersei pushing him away when he first returns to King's Landing from his journey with Brienne. John, does Jaime know about, and I'm talking about TV show Jaime, does he know about Cersei's tryst with his cousin Lancel?
I don't know. I don't think so. If he does, the show definitely hasn't made a real big thing about it. Whereas in the books,
it's a huge thing.
A lot more.
Yeah. In the books, Tyrion tells him that as they part, and they're already parting as enemies. Tyrion tells him that, and Jaime doesn't know whether to believe it or not. And then it's on his mind for the entirety of A Feast for Crows, and finally, at the end of the book, seeing the decisions that she makes, he finally comes to believe it. Tyrion tells him what Cersei is what Cersei's really like, and it takes him the entirety of that book to come to that same conclusion. So if Jaime and Cersei are going to part, if they're going to have a division, it may not be Lancel, but it's going to be something along those lines. And maybe it's Tyrion. Maybe it's finding out that Tyrion didn't kill Joffrey. If Jaime believed that Tyrion had killed Joffrey, I don't think he would have released him from the Black Cells. I don't know, Lannister soap opera, man. Lannister family dynamics is very, very odd, and Jaime's in such an odd place. Caught in between his brother and his sister, who's also his lover. As far as Tyrion, it's his best friend. He doesn't open up and speak with Bronn the way he talks to Tyrion. The Lannisters don't trust anybody except for Lannister. So is it really any surprise that the only people that Jaime talks to is Tyrion and Cersei? But the important thing is who is Jaime going into episode 4, going into the spoils of war? Who is Jaime? Is he going to confront Cersei about what Olenna Tyrell said? Because that's a double-edged sword also. Do you think he confronts Cersei and says, Olenna Tyrell told me that she poisoned Joffrey? What happens with Tyrion now?
I think he's going to at some point.
It matters little. Tyrion has chosen Daenerys' side, and Cersei's not going to give up the Iron Throne.
Right.
It doesn't matter at this point. It's beyond that. So I think the only function it has is making Jaime doubt Cersei more. And take away kindness from Jaime. Because he definitely regrets that, and I'm sure he wishes he had given the Queen of Thorns a painful death. What else do you have to say about Jaime?
Outside the camera angle, which I talked about on Sunday, that I thought I love that camera angle.
Mark Mylod directed this episode, and it's a short season, and he directed the last episode, so to say it's the best job so far this season isn't really saying a whole lot. But he did a great job last week also with the pacing and fitting all that stuff into that one episode. It was stark contrast this week because he was taking his time with the scenes and really letting you be engrossed in one scene, staying with that scene until you had some sort of emotional payoff. That was a good job by him. Very good job by him. Guys, thank you for listening.